right. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker Carl, and I'm broadcasting to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. Here with my good friends Dan and Karen and Jason. And yep, I'm getting an echo. Maybe it won't be too bad. Okay, well, anyway, we're studying the book Leonardo and Gabriel by Tim Tigner, and we're going to be talking about the chapter entitled Jesus. Are you guys hearing the echo too?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, might need to turn the volume down.
Yeah, maybe a little. If you try that, Dan. See if you turn it down a little bit. That'll help. Of course, then you won't be able to hear it.
Yeah, can barely hear you now, and it's all the way up.
All right. We'll just do what we can do. Anyway, guys, jump out, introduce yourselves, and then we'll get going with our conversation.
Hey, I'm Jason. It's good to be here, y'all.
I'm Karen Lohoff. It is good to be here.
Here, Dan, you want to jump out and introduce yourself?
I was just trying to hear what you were saying.
Gotcha. Right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Everything's just going crazy this morning for me. Why? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. No big deal. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start. So this chapter titled Jesus is kind of a little bit of a summary of what we've been talking about a little bit. And I feel like there's some pretty good points in here. But one of the things I've been struggling with through the last few chapters is this kind of conclusion that Gabriel and Leonardo have come to about God being time or time being God. And if I can kind of look at that in a different perspective for me, if instead of saying that God is time, we say God is the universe or all of everything, then I can wrap my head around that a whole lot easier than just saying that God is only time. But I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of how it helps me. And then if we do that, then all of these kind of points that are made in this chapter make perfect sense for me. So what do you guys think?
I would say something that thought that I had this week, because how we all seem to have a little bit of issue with time and stuff. At various stuff, I still believe that time is a valid thing. I'm looking back, and when we make the comment about where, how we get, because we have the memories of moment compared to that moment to another moment and stuff like that. But then I started looking at, I've seen if time wasn't a construct that is valid or what's in the realm of how would we account for the change of physiologically over time? Is like I have all this gray hair, which I didn't have when I was younger. I didn't have hair. My body is, or it's, aspects of wear and time and stuff like that have done to my body. But if we didn't have the time that we understand now, how would we account changes in those things that and the changes seasons and things like that, where if we didn't really have have time to use as a measurement of how things are done, and our memories to help us understand that. How would we account for summer when it's and then turn around and later on when it's cold and snow and all those things? How would we be able to look at that and to explain if we don't use time? I'm done.
Well, what you said, Samantha, about in closing the universe and other. Am I now starting to double talk? Oh my goodness. Does make more sense to me. To me, as I continue to think about time, I find it very impersonal, and Gabriel makes a sensible issue about how we have learned through our lives that God has to be personal, but and I know that I do get that picture in my mind when I think about God, but the thinking about time as impersonal is really quite harsh to me. I don't embrace that, but I can embrace what you said, including the universe and so forth.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking sort of along the lines of that as well, Karen. That time for me, time has been more like the devil than God. It's been more like, it's always been the thing I'm racing against to get things done and get to my appointments and achieve things on time. And so it's always that way to gauge where I'm at in the tasks that I'm doing and all that. So that there are a lot of different understandings. I guess. They say, I think I remember someone saying it was a great equalizer. It has that impersonal characteristic of being, like all the encompassing and never stopping. Past tense, but then really the only part of time that matters to each of us is our existence. Gosh, what a great question. Maybe you could read something from the book to kind of enlighten us on what they were referring to.
Yeah, they've been kind of talking over the past couple of chapters about how they just kind of come to the conclusion, or Gabriel being the angel trying to express to Leonardo this concept of that all these points that he's made in the previous chapter all equal out to being time. The time is like the answer to the question, if you will, of who is God. And of course, the past few times that we've been on here talking, we've expressed why we just disagree with some of those based on. Of course, my thought on it is the aspect of is that time doesn't necessarily solve for God, just because of the fact that our science on time, we use the term time to describe something that is a measurement of our movement through the universe, and that's my reasoning for it. And we've also kind of discussed how I lost my train of thought. Dan was jumping in and out. Distracted. Anyway, we just kind of struggled with that whole concept of time and God being the same, because I feel like there is so much more to it than just like time. I feel like that without the universe, time wouldn't exist either. And so we have the whole universe, and our little part in it may not be huge, but it's still something. And of course, without the universe, we couldn't exist. So that's kind of where I'm at with everything, as far as time versus God versus what I feel like would be more likely to be accurate. And so then, in this chapter, they're talking about different things, different kind of conclusions that you can kind of discuss based on that concept of God and time. But if I look at it as God and i.e. the universe, then it makes more sense to me. But so he's talking about prayer at this point, and this is kind of like the first thing he talks about is prayer. And he says, Gabriel said, another intricate issue, but one with addressing. According to some religions, God answers prayers. According to others, God does not. In any case, it's clear that the vast majority of prayers are not answered. If they were, nobody would be sick and everybody would be king. And then he goes on to say, but as it happens, time does answer prayers, and more often than you think. Furthermore, when it does so justly. When we pray for something, we think about it. The more we pray, the more we think. The more we think, the more we act, and the more we act, the more we solve. God does not answer prayers for us. God answers prayers with us. And again, my thought on this is it's not so much time as it is just everything. Because when I think that I agree mostly with this concept of when you pray, you are thinking about it more, and if you are meditating and you're contemplating it, or you're saying positive statements toward it, or you're affirming it with affirmations, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, is that the more that you are focused on something, that's where your energy goes. I mean, that's what we've talked about in a lot of different things, and there's just like that statement out there that what is it? What you focus on is, or where you focus is where the energy flows. There's some concept, there's some quote out there that's something along that lines. And hey, Dan, your phone is still on. Can you hear us now? Your phone is still on out there. I don't know if you can click. There you go. Good.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that God sort of transcended time, but I guess if the concept of God creating time and putting himself into time, that maybe time could also be God as well. Yeah, but I get what you're saying too. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. What do you think, Dan?
Let's see if you can hear me. Okay. I was going to say, I agree with you, Jason, on that part where God transcends. He's beyond time, but he also, because of the essence of everything about God, he's able to be both, in time, so we can wrap our heads around the aspects of everything about God, but the essence of God is not bound by time.
Yeah, if you think of it, God as creating everything and transcending everything, and then creating everything, and I mean, unless you're thinking that God is created when reality or everything came into existence, then God came into existence. So, but I always thought that the universe and everything in it, everything about it was created by it, because that was kind of when we were studying, what God could be, what God might be, that you would think that, well, we were really trying to get to the point of not what God was, but what created everything. What was what was the catalyst for the creation of everything. And then we would think, well, wouldn't God would be something that would be able to create everything, and maybe even, then the question would say, well, what created God? It's like, well, you got to, you kind of have to stop somewhere. But the whole idea of a singular, God would, in my mind, would have been that He would have created everything, and in creating everything, then that would have started time and or existence, because time, the way we think of it, is our 24-hour, 7-day a week cycle, just because of the way that the sun, the moon, the earth come together. But on other planets, they have longer days, they have longer nights, and different different whole ways of judging a time, and they do it relative to that, where they are located in this universe. So but we, I guess, where they say, time is relative. I guess that's where that comes in, huh?
Yeah, we talked about that last week a little bit too, about the time being relative. I was reading, or I was watching a show where it was these different scientists and the things that they study, and one of the scientists was I'm not sure what his title would be, what type of scientist, but he's one that studies time, and he works with one of the atomic clock locations where all the clocks adjust according to that atomic clock, and they are continuing to discover deeper and deeper decimal points out into infinity, or like further out towards the infinity aspect of how far the decimal points can go, as far as the measurement of time. They're being able to measure it at incrementally smaller and smaller amounts, and make it more and more accurate, and which is just really, really interesting. But one of the comments that he made was that the closer to the core of the Earth you are, the slower time is, and the further away you are from the Earth, the faster time moves. So for the guys out there in the space station, time moves faster for them than it does for us, and and which is a weird thing to try and wrap your head around. And then and just the differences in our time zones. It's like, for Dan and Karen, you guys are both on Mountain Time, right? Or are you on Pacific Time? Pacific Time, right? So they're a 3-hour difference from us, right, Jason?
I'm really on Mountain Time and stay on Mountain Time.
That's right. You don't switch with the daylight savings time, right?
Right.
So there's a whole other context, right?
But in the summer, it's easier for me to think that I'm on Pacific Time and screw around with, no, wait a minute, if I'm on,
right. Yeah. So your time doesn't change, but yet your time zone changes. Right.
Yeah, see, I changed because I'm in Nevada.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But Jason and I are both on Eastern Time, so our time stays along with you have daylight savings time down there too, right? Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Yeah.
It's on the East Coast. I guess it would be the same on the West Coast. I mean, but we're the time that you wake up and the time that you go to sleep here, it really makes a big difference whether or not it's, pitch black, an hour's time difference at that, early in the morning like that makes a big difference, whether or not you're getting up and it's dark out or it's light out, or when you come home, you even have, a few minutes before it gets dark before, by the time you get home after work. It makes a big difference here. So yeah, I recognize that and switch the clocks back and stuff and forward.
Yeah, so for me, I just find it hard to think that I don't know. I mean, this is a good book. It's interesting. It's definitely gotten us thinking about some very deep things when it comes to God, religion, and concepts of time and science and all that kind of thing. And
Yeah, I think it's more like existence itself
yeah,
than time as we try to, calculate it.
right. Yeah, that's kind of how I've looked at it. Is that I mean, if we were going to say God is anything other than they're trying to kind of get us away from this idea of God being the wizened old man in a robe, or a being up in the sky somewhere, and kind of take it to a deeper level. And I'm like, if we're going to take it to a deeper level, I would say that kind of that God is more likely to be just everything, and that we are one aspect of it, and everything is an aspect of God. And I mean, all of these things still work with that. So I don't know. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this? The prayer aspect. If we, does God answer prayers? Does He not answer prayers? Or the idea here is that that if we are instead collaborating with God to create in our own lives, that that everything, the time is with us on that, if you will, or the universe is with us on that, and, that we are kind of more the what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like the catalyst to whatever it is we're praying for. Anyway, that we're the ones that I can't. My words aren't working for me at the moment.
When you spoke about that earlier, I did have an interesting thought. Last night I was watching NCIS Los Angeles with Hetty and Callan and Sam. And Callan and Sam were stuck in a sub. They were imprisoned by enemies, who were sending this sub into San Diego Harbor to blow up, basically to blow up the world. And how Hetty, if you ever watch that, you know how much Hetty loves those two men. And she said something which I thought was unusual. I guess I hadn't watched the show before when there was anything to that extent, but somebody said to her, "What can we do?" And she said, "We can pray." And then she said, "Loud and hard." And I really had to think about that, because I find that my prayers tend to be more silent prayers. Living in a house of 10 people that I don't know, I pray over my meals, without anybody knowing that that's what I'm doing. And I have tended to have a lot of the type of prayers that have been more silent prayers that I haven't wanted necessarily anybody to listen to. And yet, when I got to the point where I was maniacally, meaning out of my mind, screaming at God, praying really loud and really hard, I really broke through some things, and it's interesting to me to think about that. So I think we do have a lot to do with our prayers, with how we pray them, and who we pray them with, who we pray them over.
Yeah, putting energy into your prayers or whatever it is you're saying seems to definitely have an effect both outwardly and inwardly. So I would have to agree with that. I was also thinking, though, the scenario in regards to what um, Samantha was saying. We see all these different scenarios on television and in the movies, but what if it was such that when God created the universe, he had to give everything of himself or herself to do it, and and then so basically put everything into existence, and then so I guess time would be, you could consider it that he was time, or it was time, if that were the scenario, I guess. So,
Well,
Jump
that's
out and
certainly.
say, and going back and looking at the book and bringing something out that kind of helps me, this aspect of prayer. It goes back to they were talking about I think time, or I can't remember exactly what they were talking about. It, yeah, but it came down to a point where that Leonardo finally came to the idea that and the paragraph starts that Leonardo felt a warm glow spreading within. He pressed forward. That's what is meant by we're all God's children and created as individuals. As humanity is told, we are God's eyes, ears, arms, legs, memory, and understanding. That's why we're all equal. We are all clearly at one with God, and that's the part where I think where the prayer comes in is when we speak it, or when we pray it, or when we put that energy out into the universe. I call it God. I'm trying to put that energy out there to help put into play in the universe what I want to happen. So that way, I will have the type of outcomes I'm hoping and praying for. It does not always necessarily mean that that happens. I think it's how we say it, or how we pray it, or the intentions behind when we say it or speak it or pray it or put that energy out there. I think that also has a part of it, because of we are all energy, and even though we're organic, but we all also energy, and we have energy level too, that because there's a difference when we're depressed and down as compared to when we're happy and up there. So I think that does play in, and I think that's what helps put that out there.
yeah, are we creating a connection as we do that, into the energy that we put into it? Does that better fortify the connection, or the um, the it's kind of like, as you're praying, I would think that other people are probably praying for the same sort of things that I'm praying for, and maybe the more energy that we put into it, maybe that does have something to do with it.
Yeah, in the book he says he's kind of talking on the aspect of this kind of like collaboration with God when we pray, And he says, what could be more just than answering the prayers of those who work with God to achieve them? Those who devote their time to attainment, are they not most deserving? And and I feel like what he's talking about there is that if we're praying for something to happen or something to change in our lives, and we're just sitting there and we're not doing anything, then obviously there's going to be less movement in the universe for that thing to actually happen. Whereas when we are actually praying, but then also working with God to make it happen, like for instance, if you say you want to be a business owner and you just sit there and you pray and pray and pray, I wish I was a business owner, or God, please make me a business owner, but you're not doing anything to make that happen. Or, if you want to move to a new house and you're just sitting there going, God, please move me to a new house, and nothing's happening. But yet, if you start doing things along with these prayers that you're asking, that then you actually are going to move yourself forward into the future that you're praying for, versus just expecting it to happen without you doing anything. And I think that and like you were saying, it was Dan when you were talking about us being energetic beings, and sometimes when we pray, we are moving energy that helps us also do whatever we're supposed to do that causes a thing to happen. And sometimes what we do isn't necessarily step by step towards something happening, but it changes the way that we move within our own universe in such a way that it just causes. Say you want a better relationship with one of your family members, and you're focusing on having a better relationship versus focusing on all the reasons why your relationship is so horrible. If you're focusing on those things that are good, or praying for and being grateful for the things that are good, then you naturally move in a way that is more positive in your relationship versus moving towards the things that are more negative in your relationship, and then things change. So I think it is like a collaborative effort, and it all depends on how you look at it too. So
Yeah, I just had a thought too. Does anybody pray and put a time on it? Like, or I want to be a business owner now, or I would like this happen now, or at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Lord, please, bless everyone. And do we ever add time to it?
what's interesting about that, I was thinking about this. I've got a number of things that we're kind of working on in our lives right now. One of which is we're looking for property, and that we want to, that has a house and has land and has kind of these specific things that we want. And when we got our pre-approval, I was like, "Yay, we can move like this month!" As soon as we find a place, and I'm looking and I'm looking, I'm not finding anything. And what happens with me a lot of times is I end up having this like anger coming up, and because it's not happening right when I want it to happen, and I get frustrated and then angry, and then I'm like, God, I'm just not even gonna look anymore, and but yet when I can kind of let go of this idea of it has to be done right now, or it has to happen right now, in a time frame, if you will, then I'm so much more at peace. And this happens to me in a lot of different areas. Like one of the things that with our trucking companies, we have all these compliance things that we have to follow, compliance laws and whatnot. With paperwork, it's just like this huge paperwork thing. And when I look at it and I'm like so overwhelmed by so much that has to be done, and I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh, I just need help. I just whatever, and I'm kind of like having these thoughts, the more that I think about it, the more frustrated and stressed out I get. And but when I take time out of it, if I'm like, okay, I have all the time in the world to get this done, and I don't have to get it done in this like one little second, then I'm more at peace. So I don't know if that kind of aspect, if you're talking about, you're trying to get it done within a certain amount of time, that always stresses me out more. It makes me more unpleasant in myself as well as with the other people that are around me. And so that's my thoughts on the trying to push it in be a specific time.
That's interesting. My connection with that is being 70. I've kind of started parceling out. If I live another 10 years, I'll be 80. If I live another 20 years, I'll be 90. If I live another 30 years, I'll be 100. And what's the likelihood that this can happen or that can be a part of it, or I could get this done? And kind of like you were feeling this anger coming up and thinking, not going to happen. Sometimes I can just, yesterday I blew totally off. I didn't do a single worthy thing really in the whole day. And I thought to myself at the end of the day, I can't possibly live the rest of my life doing this. And I guess I'm not sure what started this particular ball rolling, but I just really connected with what you were saying and feeling.
You know, I think another aspect of that, and this is kind of off the topic of the book, but I feel like a lot of the time when this anger comes up in me because this, that, or the other isn't going, I think it should be, is that I realize that I'm focused more on what I ought to, should, ought to have, should, coulda, woulda, you know, all these different aspects of what I think I should be or ought to be, or, you know, maybe someone else thinks I ought to be, or it's like all these expectations of what life is supposed to be. It's like when I'm trying to make my life be within these guidelines, then my life is so much more frustrating, and it you know, but yet at the time, you know, the couple years back when we were living in our camper, and we didn't really have a whole lot. We didn't have like a business. We didn't have this, that, and the other. We didn't have a bunch of responsibilities, and I mean, we had minimal bills and whatnot. I can say at that point in time, I was like so much more at peace when I thought, oh, okay, there's really nothing I have to do. I don't have to go and make some shit happen. You know, I don't have to try and create some whatever in my life. I can just sit here and be at peace. And and it's interesting now because of everything that we do have going on, that when I start focusing on all the crap that I need to do, that's when I get frustrated. But then if I can just sit in a meditation and realize that, you know, if it gets done, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. Then I'm so much more at peace. And it's just crazy. It's like all these expectations on us. They make us miserable. And in my opinion, it's just you know, what really is the thing that we have to do? I mean, do we have to do any specific thing, or are we? Is it okay for us to um, just enjoy this moment? And you know, I don't know. It's interesting thoughts.
Makes me think of the phrases, you know, give yourself time or take time. So we, you know, I guess we're all afforded so much time and to work within, and we can kind of give it or take it as we decide. Sort of an emotional, I guess, aspect of it. It can affect us that way. You know, if we put the restrictions on ourselves, be really strict on what we do with our time and what we expect of ourselves during that time. You know, I guess that's all completely within us, that we put that pressure on ourselves. I don't know. What do you think?
For sure we do. We do it all the time. And even when we think it's not ourselves, say we think that we're supposed to do something because someone else, might be disappointed if we don't, or I mean, we like. There's times where I'm like, if I don't do this thing, then someone else in my life is going to be disappointed by it, and then I've disappointed someone, and but that's still an expectation I'm putting on myself of what what I want that other person to think about me, if you will. Um, but it's interesting. It kind of takes us into this next part. Do you guys still have time, or do you need to go? I know we're at the top of the hour. What's everybody doing at time?
I was gonna jump out and say one thing before you jump out with your thing. Okay, I was gonna say I'm myself within my own little struggle with that because I a lot of times do things, in my own world. It's like I'm more of the type, well, if I get to it, I get to it. If I don't, I'm not going to stress over it. I'm not going to let it be. It might hang out in the back of my head a little bit, but I don't try it. But then there's the work aspect where I'm at my job. And so there are things I'm doing and things I'm expected to do. It's almost like she'll want me to do something, and she almost like a little while later, well, do you have that? It's like, no, I've been doing some other things. I'm trying to work this in between around this, and I'm still, and it's almost like she wants it just to be almost instantaneous, and that's where I have troubles, and I'm not fast enough on some things for her to make her happy to think I'm doing the job the way, and some of it is things that because I'm only in my second month there, I'm still trying to understand, learn, get the feel, get the understanding. She thinks, well, I should be at this level and be able to do all these things just wham, bam, bam, just, and it's frustrating and it's hard. And then I put more pressure on myself because it's like, well, I'm not working fast enough. I'm not getting this done fast. I'm not, and it's like, if you will relax and open up the time frame a little bit, it will get done, and hopefully it will get done to a level that you're wanting and to be happy. But it's frustrating me, and I'm not getting anywhere with her and making her happy. So there's that side of things too that you've got to deal with, and I can't just sit there and say, oh well, that if it gets done, it's okay. If it doesn't get done, because if it doesn't get done, eventually, I'm still in my probationary period, she could look at me and say, well, I don't need you anymore. You're not living up to my expectations, and I'm going to let you go and find somebody else that will. How do you deal with things like that? Because I can't just sit there and say, oh, well, if it gets done, it gets done. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's a part of life that we all have to deal with. And that can be very stressful. And when you come home, and it might lead into something like what Karen was talking about. You blow up and you just totally lose it over something so little and inane and stupid, but you don't know why you lost it over. But the real reason is because of these other things. So, and that, where does that time play in there too, in the whole scheme of things? And I'm sorry, it's just something I've been frustrated with, and this is a perfect time to kind of throw that illustration out there, though, too.
Yeah, how do we free up some time to,
Yeah, it's hard. It's like you maybe you find some answers within yourself, but you still have to play this game of life, right? That you know there are rules, and if you want to be able to participate in it, I mean, obviously, I've thought there's been a number of times in my life where I'm like, I just wish I could just completely withdraw from everything and go off and live in a cabin in the woods somewhere just by myself with no expectations on me, and and just do my own thing and focus on my own self, and everything will be perfect, you know. But we have to live in the world. We have to live in society. We have you know, we can't all just withdraw, right? You know, maybe for moments, maybe that's the key, is we just withdraw for moments and go into our meditative state or prayer or, you know, whatever we need to do, or we just go and do an activity that helps us kind of take ourselves out of the game for a little while, and then we step back in maybe with a little more energy and are able to navigate through it. I don't know. I don't know. Well,
It's like timelines colliding. You know, like when two people tasks or schedules, they don't quite sync together. You know, you have to figure out like, well, how do we sync our existence and what we want to get done together? Because we both want to leave at 5 o'clock, but your expectation of what needs to get done may be different than my expectation, because I'm thinking quality and I'm thinking checklist, and these things have to be checked off before these things can get done. And maybe you're thinking, well, I don't focus too much on these things. I want this done, and in that time frame, maybe it gets done at 5. But in my time frame, where I have to check off all these other things, maybe it's 5:30 or 6. So I guess more communication, but really, how do you free up that time? How do you, maybe you figure out what things can be um, left off, or maybe delegated to someone else for the time being. Hey, watch this for me, so I don't have to keep checking on this while I'm trying to get this done. But it's yes, thinking of the timelines, or else they collide and there's a bunch of friction. Just more in a personal reality aspect, not so speaking so esoterically in regards to the existence of us all. But how do we get through our daily lives and merging with other people's and getting in sync with other people's timelines, and even recognizing that we need to do that, because a lot of times I'm thinking that everyone's on the same wavelength as I am, but they're obviously not, and they're either moving a little faster or moving a little slower. And it gets me too sometimes, where I'm trying to move at a very quick pace, and then I come across someone who is working like they're still working in the 80s, and it's like everything slows down to a human pace rather than this internet age. It's like, what, I wish I could just do my things at that human pace, and everyone could slow down to where I would be. That would be easier. But instead, I'm always trying to match their speed. So yeah, that's all very interesting. What do you think?
yeah, definitely trying to collaborate with other people is a challenge. And even between my husband and I, when we're mostly on the same page with things, we still have we still have times where I feel like he should be doing things on a different speed level than what he is, and he probably feels the same way about me sometimes. And but yeah, it definitely comes down to a communication thing. It is just really having those conversations. It's like, okay, here's our task list, or here's our task list, and what do you feel like is the highest priority? Here's what I think is the highest priority, and where can we go from here? So, and that usually ends up helping a lot. If nothing else, just to help us get back to being on the same path and knowing, okay, well, this is what I've been doing, and this is what you've been doing, and we're both working towards the same goal here. Um, but yeah, I mean, anytime it's with other people, you always have to be communicating because if you're constantly having like these expectations, or you think that expectations are on you and you don't know for sure, then that's when it becomes frustrating. Is you think that you're doing the right thing, and yet um, you have someone that's expecting something completely different from you. You don't even know, right? So.
How many have you have been thrown off by this, by being, by this COVID-19 um, whole situation? Where have you had any? Uh, have you had to check the calendar or check what day it was yet? I mean, has it thrown you off? I know yesterday I got up and I thought it was Saturday, so I was really. It got me yesterday. I know one TV station or one news station has been reminding everybody what day it was. So I guess some people have been experiencing that as well. What about you?
Not so much. I mean, but the thing that's different for me is that I mean, this we're just coming into our spring season because our business is seasonal, and so we've been sitting around the house since December, you know, doing basically, well, I wouldn't say nothing. We're always doing something, but for the most part, in our off season, we sit around the house and try not to go and spend a whole lot of money on stuff anyway, because that's our slow time, and and I'm more of an introvert anyway, so staying home is like no big deal for me, but occasionally my schedule will, I'll forget what day it is, but that's nothing abnormal. It doesn't have anything to do with the COVID-19. The thing that strikes me the most is just when we do go out, how desolate it is. I mean, it's not super desolate because we're in Indianapolis and it's still, there's always tons of people running around, but not as much as normal. It's like a Saturday. But yeah, my daughter posted something the other day. It was just a funny. It was one of those little meme things, and it was introvert sitting there with headphones on, just like la la la, the world's great and wonderful. And then the background, there's like the people who are normally out running around all the time, and and they're like fighting and crazy is happening, and the introvert's just sitting there like la la la. That's me. So.
Back around to this whole, back to even the question we've talked about earlier, the timing of prayers and the timing of what we put out in the universe, and the whole timing, but that was just such a perfect example of, the things that we want to control, because I would so love to just slap her upside the head and say, I'm not you. I am not you. I'm not, I work differently. And but yet I can still get a lot of things done, but if allowed to work, and I think that's how the universe works too. If we're working in tandem and, like you said, doing and working towards and putting that motion and energy into things, then that's where we get the results. Not always the way we exactly want them, but something that then helps propel us even more in that direction. So, I mean, sorry, I just was bringing up a frustrating moment, but it. So I didn't mean to get us kind of off topic, but you know, but it still comes back to time and things and stuff, and how we look at time, and how we so easily and heavily fall into it because of how it plays into our everyday life without ever really taking time to think about it and look at it and see how it really affects our lives, and how it plays in, and how we can better utilize it or better understand it and work in tandem with it, I guess, so to speak, to bring out better results for us in our lives, and for better results for humanity too. I think it also can help play into there too.
And when I listen to you talk about this, and especially how it makes you feel toward her, what comes to my mind, and of course, I only have this tiny little view of you, and I have this tiny little view of hers. So I could be completely off about this. But if it were me, I think I would say, all right, Henrietta, my experience has come to the point with you that when you assign me a new something to do, you're looking for it to be done sooner than I've been able to produce it for you. So can you give me kind of an idea of what time frame you think this should take, keeping in mind that I have all the other standard things that I need to have done in my day? Because what I really like to do is come to you with it done, as opposed to having you have to come to me and ask me if I've got it done. And just see if you can't get a little conversation going about that.
I think that's a good idea. Communication, for sure.
Yeah, I know in my most recent job, the boss was always asking for changes in pricing, and it was always last minute, and then without really, it seemed like without really regard with what it would take to make those changes, and even in like how the request was presented, I would have to let them know, it's better to just, it would be better for me if you, instead of giving me a specific price, why don't you give me a percentage to add or take off? It'd be, what are you looking for there? Because I would have to add it into a formula that would, give me a price. I'd have to figure out how to come up with that price in regards to the different discounts or offers that I had already created in the system. So I would have to then take his request, translate it into what that means to what I needed to do, and then by the time, and that would take a little bit of time. But sometimes by the time that would happen, he would want to go ahead and make an additional change to everything, because there was probably different. I'd say we were working with properties. So there was over 100 properties that would have to change pricing with over a couple months of period of time. So we'd have to change that in accordance to all the different offers I had within that time. So one change meant 100 different changes to me, and he wasn't really thinking that in his mind. So I had to bring that up multiple times to him to, and he finally realized, okay, this is the best way for me to present this to Jason, so that he could get it done quicker, and then it wouldn't be such a difficult task or take so long. Because then while I was having to do those simple changes, nothing else would get done that I was having to do. And, so sometimes that communication and being, understanding what it means when someone else puts those restrictions on your own, on what time you have, can make a difference.
Have you seen yourself in that little Geico ad where the lizard is sitting there with like 8 to 10 huge piles of flyers that he's got ready to go out? The boss comes in and says, what do you have on the flyers? And he says, change them. And he says, the Geico very softly says, change them too. It sounds like your difficulty.
Yeah, pump the brakes, right? Switch gears. Save them for later. But what do you want me to do with these? Put them in your desk, and maybe we'll use them. yeah, some is like no regard for what you're going through, but this is what we want. We want it now. Good. Commercial.
All right, guys, I think we're enough to talk about on this chapter at the moment. We've already gone over our hour and some, so we may not have recorded, but we've been on here for like an hour and a half. So, but anyway, guys, it's been a great chat today. So let's wrap up and then we can back on here next week. I think we're only one chapter away from the end of the book, and I know you guys all voted for the next, so I appreciate that. So we'll get started on it pretty soon. Great.
Love you guys. Glad to be here. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next week.
Definitely, I repeat that. Love you guys very much.
Love being here, and I don't mind that we took a little more time today and we got off topic a little and things like that, but that tends to happen sometimes. So, but love it when we hang out like this.
Guys, for those of you who are watching, if you found this is an interesting conversation or you want to join us, we would love to have you come on. Just jump over to our Facebook group. You can find us at mindsetmasterycollective.com. That will take you right into our Facebook group, and just request to join. Reach out to one of us, and we can help you participate in the Saturday Morning Mastermind. With that, a great, awesome, amazing weekend, and we'll see you next time on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.